So companies like Spotify use these tags to increase user engagement, user satisfaction, user value. But most companies don't approach those problems that way. Most companies are still routing all of their data over to these decisions about which ways to contact users through teams, most centrally usually a data science or analytics team. These teams exist to take all of the data and crunch it and stage it and put it into insights that then a non-technical user could pick up and try to use. So, for example, you might use your app events to find the last time you saw the user. You might go to your point of sale system and find the last, create some sort of measure of lifetime value. Put those two things together into a segment that we'll call high value active users. And then now that that segment exists, you can now look at how many users are in it, you can see how it's performing, and most importantly, CRM team or product could then take that segment and then use that to change the experience for those users. The challenge with that way of doing things is that it is full of human-sized bottlenecks. You have to wait for your engineering team to turn around the data processing. You have to wait for your data science team to be able to create those metrics. And you have to rely on a lot of humans to then take that information and use it both appropriately and in a timely manner. And that just doesn't happen very often. It's not the human's fault. There are a lot of every user in your app has a different experience, has different preferences, and there is no way for a human to be able to handle that kind of flood of information. There is no analytics team large enough that they could actually analyze each individual user, and there is no CRM team large enough that they could actually act on individual insights, even if you produced that. And so what these teams end up doing, and what the modern communication stack is designed and limited to do, is to set a bunch of static rules, user segments, message triggers, lots of if-then logic. It's not that these rules work well. They don't. It's that these rules allow all of the humans who are working on this problem to take an incredibly complex situation and treat it as something less complex. They're adapting the situation to meet their needs, not adapting their capability to meet the situation. That's not how the most innovative companies do it. Most innovative companies take an entirely different approach, an entirely different basis for their decision-making, using agents. An agent is a particular type of AI that can operate autonomously within boundaries. If you have used a large language model like ChatGPT, then you have used an agent. Large language models take boundaries. If you tell GPT to talk to you in English, it will return English. You tell it to talk to you in German, it returns German. You tell it to talk to you in code, it returns code. It has a lot of room for creativity within those boundaries, but it does take your guidance. Agents don't only have to operate on language. They can operate on behavior as well. Most notably, they can operate on your event stream. All of it. Not just a few of the funnel events, but every button click, every page visited, every social media share. They can take all of that data, process it for an individual user, and then choose good next steps to engage that user. They do this through 4 basic capabilities, some of which they have in common with LLMs, some of which are actually unique to a behavioral agent. So, surrogates. If you are an e-commerce app, you ultimately want users to buy. If you're a streaming app, you want users to listen or to watch. If you're a gaming app, you want them to play. But every time you reach out to a user or they come to your app, they're not going to do that every single time. But they will often do something. A surrogate model is a particular type of machine learning model that will take a goal event and identify precursors, predictors. So the agent is able to assess intention. It's able to say, this user isn't doing the thing. They aren't going to the finish line yet, but they're moving in the right direction. That's a core human capability. We use that every time we talk to one another. And surrogate models allow a behavioral agent to mimic that capability. Embeddings are an information map. If you take all of that event stream from your app, Agents are able to condense that into a representation that they can navigate easily in order to find similarities and differences between users. So if a user is not converting, but they are doing other things, the agent that's assigned to that user can then go navigate the embeddings to find other users who have similar behavioral profiles, but are converting, and ask those agents what worked for them, and then apply those lessons to the user it's assigned to. Edges are connections in a graph. If you have two pairs of shoes of the same brand, then they are connected by an edge in the graph. If you have two songs that are connected by a genre, then they have an edge in that graph, a connection. If you have two messages that have the same value proposition, there's an edge in that content graph. The edges allow agents to identify what users have experienced so far, what they haven't experienced, and see what the next best step is. What's the next thing you could do that would engage that user? And all of this rolls up into weights, which are a way for a virtual agent to maintain working memory. If you send a message about how Nike shoes are popular right now, and the user responds positively to that, the agent has a representation of Nike, and it has a weight associated with that representation. It's going to move that weight up. And it's going to have a representation and a weight of shoes, and it's going to upweight that. It's going to have a representation of the notion of popularity. It's going to upweight that. So it allows the agent to learn what works and what doesn't, and to maintain that memory over time. Just as it's possible to train an AI to complete a sentence, it is possible to train an AI to read the room, to connect dots, to apply lessons learned. And with those tools, the AI is able to act autonomously within the guidelines you set.